Watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut, giving, of course, all honor and all glory to Yahweh by Hashem Mashiach Malak Yahushai. Double honor to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming of Mashiach Malak Yahushai. The hearty, mighty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, presenting their body as a living sacrifice, and enduring all things for the elect's sake. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying, they're fasting, they're studying, they're being diligent and abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. And shalom to all of the Akwath out there, the sincere sisters out there, holding it down in households, reverencing their husbands, being submissive and diligent, and moving in the spirit of our righteous foremothers. Shalom, shalom. Kwam Yashala to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, and peace and blessings to the elect of our people scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. This is a Pentecost before camp warning edition. Before camp warning edition Pentecost. Warning our people of the wheats and the tares, and of the first fruits of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Of course, I'm driving, obviously, so I'm not going to be able to stop, pull over, and pull out precepts and read them, verbatim. So I'll just be going in the spirit, and I'll be doing a lot of paraphrasing, a lot of quoting, etc. So when you read in the law, in the book of Exodus, the 23rd chapter, another name for Pentecost. Now the word Pentecost, it means 50. Penta meaning 5, or other derivations or variations of 50. Right? So Pentecost meaning 50. So after your Feast of Unleavened Bread and following your first fruits, you begin to count 50 weeks. 50 days. Right? So you count 7 weeks of 7 days. Saying that a week is 7 days. And then after that, you count one more day, and that gives you your 50 days. On that 50th day is called your Pentecost. But in the ancient world, they didn't call it Pentecost. In the ancient world, during the time of Moses, during the time of our fathers, Tobit, they called it the Feast of Harvest. Right? The Feast of Harvest is the alternative name for Pentecost. Now, it's called the Feast of Harvest because when you study agriculture, we are a people of horticulture. We are a people of agriculture. Right? We are a people of husbandry. You understand? So much so where the Lord said, hate not husbandry, right? Neither laborers work, which the Most High hath ordained. And Ecclesiastes 7:15. We're a people of husbandry. So around the time of the early spring season, we will be planting our particular crops, chiefly for the barley harvest, right? So we'll be planting our crops, planting our corn, oil, wine, etc. And around the time of the barley harvest, it's the time that we would gather our crops, right? And you would bless and thank Yahweh Bashem Yahushua for the increase that He has given you. You have to be patient. You will have to labor and work. Then the Most High will reward you with the increase of the field. And that increase of the field is how you sustain yourself and your family and your nation. There was no going to Walmart or going to Giant, Safeway, Publix, Pete's, whatever chain of grocery stores is near you to buy your food. You have to labor, grow, and work with your own hands, man, to get your food. Right? So the increase that you got was a reward of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Now, what the Most High is doing on a spiritual level is He's providing an increase now. Now, when you read Isaiah 5:7, we're likening it to the vineyard. Right? Where the vineyard and the men of Judah is the Most High's pleasant plant. And Isaiah 5:7. And in this vineyard are many things. Right? When you read Song of Solomon, you have frankincense trees. Right? You have myrrh, you have aloes, and all types of plants, which represent the different types of men that are in His truth. Right? And that are in the nation. You have apostles, you have prophets, you have evangelists, you have ministers, you have teachers, you have pastors. Right? These are the righteous fruits, the wheat, likened unto Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. And among that wheat, you have something called the first fruits. Now, the first fruits in the ancient world to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. which you actually gave unto the sons of Aaron, unto the priest. So you couldn't eat the first fruits. Even though you labored and toiled and worked, and that was the first increase that came out of the earth, that did not belong to you. It actually belonged to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. The Most High takes all of the first. He takes the first that openeth the mother's womb, pursuant to Exodus, the 13th chapter, when he sanctified the firstborn of the sons of Israel. And even later in the book of Numbers, the 3rd chapter, where the Most High takes the sons of Levi for the firstborn. Right, so the Most High deals with the first. He even takes the first of your increase of the field, which is your first fruits. Right? So you have the first fruits, you have the wheat. What is going on? Right? It's like you have the wheat and you have the tares. So among the first fruits, it's going to be among the first fruits of the wheat. When you read St. Matthew, the 13th chapter, there's a parable regarding the wheats and the tares. Right? The wheats are the elect gathered in the barns, and the tares are the children of the wicked one. Now, the Lord said, and I'm loosely paraphrasing, in that account, you had men that said, should we gather up the wheats with the tares? They asked Yahushua, who was the Lord of the harvest. Right? They said, should we gather the wheats and the tares? Yahushua said, nay, lest they gather up the wheat also with the tares. Right? And vice versa. So this before camp warning is to remind brothers that there are two great lots. You got the wheat and you got the tares for the harvest, right? Now the wheat are the elect. The tares, when you look at the wheat and the tare from a botanical standpoint, they look identical. They look exactly the same. You really can't tell the difference between a wheat and a tare. Same length, same color, same leaf structure, same everything. But their spirit is different. So you brothers that are in this truth, but they could actually be a tare. You may look like an Israelite, right? Because you have your beard and your fringes. You may have a staff in your hand, social media accounts. You may know a few words, Kwam Yashala. You may know the name of Yahweh, the name of his son Yahushua. You may have the physical characteristics of the wheat. But genetically, is what the genetics, for lack of better terms, is what separates the wheat from the tares. But inwardly, they are different. That's how it is in this truth, man. You have men that seem righteous, seem like they're diligent, seem like they're Israelites, but internally, in the spirit, they're not. They're slothful. They don't do the work. Right? They're not mindful of the works of our fathers. They're going back into the world. They barely study. They don't read. They hate their brother. So they may seem like the wheat, but at the end of the day, those tares have a judgment too. And the tares are going to be gathered together and burned according to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. The tares are going to be gathered together and burned. So you want to push and do this work to ensure that you are the wheat and not the tares, man. And not sown by the devil in this thing. Because when you read that parable in Matthew the 13th chapter, the Lord said an enemy had done this. So an enemy actually put the tares in amongst the wheat, man. You have brothers in this thing that are good and some are bad. And that theme of that parable of the good and bad is all throughout Matthew the 13th chapter. Regarding the wheat and the tares, there's another parable likened it to a man taking a net and gathering all kinds of fish and put them into a vessel and cast the bad away but kept the good. Right? These are different parables where the Lord discerns and lets you know that you're going to have a plethora of Israelites in this truth. But everybody's not going to make it. The bad are going to be cast away and the good are going to be gathered into the barns. Now the barns is spiritual for salvation, for the chariots rather. There's another parable in Matthew the 22nd chapter where the Lord had a wedding, right? And he had gathered good and bad, all types of Israelites. And there was an Israelite in there. He didn't have his wedding garment on. And Yahushua said, friend, how comest thou in hither not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. So you have brothers in this thing, but their spirits ain't right, man. That's what it said. So brothers have to be diligent to make your call and election sure. You got to push for the kingdom. You got to fight for the kingdom, because there's going to be a lot of people that die with fringes on. Right? There's going to be a lot of people with APTTMH in their bio that are going to die. Right? There's going to be a lot of people who can say Kwam Yasha Allah. Even Yahweh Shah said in Matthew 7:21 on down, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. Right? So just because you even know the name of the Most High don't mean you're going to make it. Right? You have to know the name of the Lord. You got to repent. You got to ask for forgiveness. You got to keep the commandments. You got to be diligent. You got to be steadfast, unmovable. You can't be slothful. You can't hate your brother. You can't hate order and structure. Right? You can't just do your own thing. You can't give your strength into a woman, a strength into your job, or the strength into the flesh, man. That's what's going to separate the wheat from the tares. Right? Because they may look the same. They both may have fringes on. They both may say they believe in the Most High. But the Most High is not a man that looketh on the outward appearance. Because if you gathered the wheat and the tares, then you'll gather them both together. Because you're going to look on the outward appearance. You don't know the genetic structure of the wheat and the tares. You're not a botanist. You can't go and put it under a microscope and say, well, this one has this many X, Y, and Z, and this one has this much X, Y, and Z. To know the difference, man. That's why Yahweh Shah said the angels, they are the reapers. And the angels will sever the wicked from among the just. And shall gather out of all things of his kingdom that offends. Right? So the Lord is going to use the angels. Because the angels know who's doing the righteous works, who's doing the wicked works. The angels can see past your beard and your mitra and your fringes and your social media profiles, right? And your clubhouse account, man. The angels see past that. So they have the most they're the most qualified. I'll just leave it at that. They are the most qualified when it comes to determining who's righteous and who's wicked. Right? When determining who's righteous and who's wicked, man. So brothers have to ask themselves, man, am I moving like a tare, or am I moving like a wheat? Am I outwardly righteous and inwardly wicked? Or am I inwardly righteous and outwardly righteous? Right? These are the spirits that I kind of think of when it comes to the harvest, because the harvest is the end of the world. And the Lord is letting these grapes grow. When you read Joel chapter 3, 9 through 12, right? When you read Revelation, the 14th chapter, right? 8 on down, you read about Yahweh Shai with a sharp sickle in his hand. And you read about this harvest. And the Lord is going to take those grapes and press them down, man. Right? Meaning destroy the other nations. And it says that Yahweh Shai's blood is going to be sprinkled upon his garment. He's going to stain all his raiment. You know, with the amount of grapes that he's going to destroy in the harvest. So when I think of the harvest, I think of the reaper. I think of the grim reaper. I think of death and destruction. I think of me trying to be delivered amongst the lot of the wheat and not amongst the lot of the tares, man. So it's a heavy spirit during the time of Pentecost. A lot of times we focus on the time of Passover, which rightfully so, we go into the unleavened bread and what it represents. We go into the lamb and the wine and the bitter herbs and what they mean spiritually for us. But we often have to go, or also have to go into Pentecost and a harvest and the Feast of Harvest and what it means for us as a nation of people. What it means concerning the judgments of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. Right? And what it means when it comes to us making sure we are not the tares, but we are the wheat. And not being sown by the devil. Right? So this is a before camp warning, really an exhortation, charging brothers. Right? Jake, man. Charging brothers to be in the spirit more, man. And think about the harvest, and think about the reapers, and be mindful that the angels, which are the reapers, are recording you, man. they're recording the wheats and what they do. And they record the tares and what they do. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good amongst men. Right? So Jake, you got to stay in the spirit. You got to make sure you're fasting, praying, and really separating yourself from the pack. Because that's what it's about at the end of the day anyway. It's about getting brownie points with Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. It's about going above and beyond. It's about doing the most in righteousness, man. Like brother said, it's about being on fire. Some brothers hate to hear that, man. Right? But it's really about being on fire. And not just being on fire for one day, have a sustainability with your flame. That means being on fire consistently and not taking days off and not taking weeks off in His truth and not taking months off, man. You know, so I just want to put that out there. Lord willing, brothers are standing in the spirit. You have a mighty Sabbath. You keep this day holy. And again, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, Most High willing you were edified. Kwam Yasha. Shalom.